This segment has been sponsored by Pro Bikes Caribe. Pro Bikes Caribe, get yours today. Before we get into today's interview, hear a little bit about the book from the author themselves.
Hi, I'm Keffi Rosita, Trinbagonian author, poet, and spoken word artist. My book, Stone Cold, is a short young adult mystery that challenges readers to push beyond what is immediately presented and search out the truth against even the most terrifying odds. It can be found on Amazon and your favorite digital stores.
Go. Greetings, listenership. Welcome to TLC, Tropical Literature Creatives, the podcast where we interview authors of Caribbean heritage about themselves and about their literary works. Today we have with us Keffi Rosita, author of the book Stone Cold. As Keffi, welcome to Tropical Literature Creatives.
Thank you for having me. It's really nice to be here.
Okay, good to hear. I usually begin the interview with a scenario to most of my guests, and the scenario is this. May I ask which Caribbean island you have ties to?
Trinidad and Tobago.
Trinidad and Tobago. Imagine I'm coming to Trinidad and Tobago for the very first time. I've only heard about it, but I've never experienced anything. And we encounter each other at the airport. As it's my first time in your country, what would you recommend that I try? Whether it's a food, a place, anything. What would you recommend to me?
I would recommend doubles and roti. That is our favorite go-to dish, and I think it kind of speaks to the diversity of our island. You can get almost any type of food here, but I think doubles is like our staple street dish. So yeah, that would be the first thing I'd recommend to try.
Okay. Okay, well said. So, ladies and gentlemen, if it is that you're listening, Kathy Rosita recommends doubles and roti, and you heard it here first, guys. So Kathy, are you a full-time author or writer?
Not full time. I do have my regular 9 to 5 job. But I try to write as much as I can.
Okay. How did you get your beginnings in writing?
That's very interesting. For as long as I can remember, even as a child, I think words just interested me. So even in primary school, growing up like English language, vocabulary and comprehension, and then in secondary school, English literature, having to do like creative writing things, that was always what I would do. I would just like write things. I started off, doing like poetry, writing this random things, and then I just started writing like small short stories, things that interested me. So I think I always had this like for writing, and so I would write random things.
Uh, uh, how is it you came about to write the book Stone Cold?
For Stone Cold, I had it actually, the idea of that actually started. So fun fact about me, I like random weird things. So I always have this idea that life is not the same for everybody. So I like to explore different things. So I would look at, there's a channel on YouTube called Backcroft TV where they highlight like different diseases, like those rare kind of things. Like there's different ways people would live their lives. And I came across a video of it was the same disease that's mentioned in the book, scleroderma. And so they were calling the person with it Stone Princess. And I said, this is so interesting. Like, I wonder what the first person who encountered this thing would have thought it was. And so that kind of led me down a rabbit hole of just kind of researching it, seeing what it's about. And I was going to go into the realm of like fantasy with it, kind of make it into like, so just how the book starts in terms of people having these misconceptions and saying, it was like a charlatan and all of these things. I was going to go into that route of doing um magical realism and stuff. But then I said, I think I want to relate it to something else. And so it kind of just like took on a life of its own, just as When I saw the video on Backroft TV, it was kind of like how people had misconceptions about her and just those kind of things. And I was like, maybe I can talk about that. And so I switched it back into real life, and so that it kind of just took on that thing of really investigating something before you pass judgment on it.
Now that we know a bit of a background about the book, can you tell us a little bit about the book in particular? Um, Ruthie Banfield and the events that are contained within the book. Not too much. We still want persons to go out and to buy the book, but just enough so that we may just have an elementary idea as to its contents.
Sure, no problem. I think for me, I'm a rebel at heart. And so I wanted to have that element inside of the main character. And the book features her just going against societal norm to investigate something that piques her interest, that seems like so terrifying, and people think like, she just stay away from it entirely, but she has this curiosity that she needs to to get to the bottom of it. She needs to find answers. So that is what she sets out to do. Just being a rebel in her time, and deciding in her heart that, you know what, I'm going to get to the bottom of this because I can't sleep another wink if I don't, find out this thing. So it's basically just her journey going on discovering what this folk tale is about, what this horror story that people are talking about. Is it true? Is it something that should be feared, or maybe there's a completely different story behind it? So she's going to discover the truth of what lies inside of that mansion.
Okay, thank you for that. Uh, as you've given us background about the origins and you've given us some details about the book itself, can you tell us a little bit about your writing process? Is it that you did a little writing every day, or is it that you did it when it is that, the spirit moved you to write? Did you have a process?
It's so interesting. I do not have a process. I know most people like to plan, and most people may, have this 8-point plot scheme that they'll do. But for me, it's like a mixture of, okay, I may get an idea one time, and so everything comes to me, and I'll sit one time and just kind of pen it out, and then I'll go back and be like, okay, how can I edit this and get it, to flow seamlessly? Or it may be that I just have the idea and the points that I want to get in, and then every day I'll probably get a little better, be like, okay, maybe I could add this in, and or I would be like, all right, I'm not getting anything, and I'll wait until the spirit moves, as you said. So it's basically however that story develops inside of my mind is how I would tackle it. I try not to force something. So if I do get an idea originally and I write it down, in terms of just that one little piece that I want to build around, if nothing else comes to me, I'm not a person who can just sit and be like, okay, let me think about it hard enough, and then I can put it into this formulaic way of writing. I have to get some sort of inspiration or some sort of creative flow to be able to continue writing. So if I sit and try to write, it won't come to me as easily as I would like it to. So I would just write what comes and then kind of give it a rest and come back. Or if all comes one time, I sit and I just, regurgitate it on the page. So it's a very weird writing process, but I'm trying to be better.
Well, as you say that you're trying to be better, are you getting any coaching, or are you just, reviewing your process and trying to improve on it as you go along?
That is so interesting because I do a lot of research. So I research a lot of the 3-act series, like all of these different writing suggestions. And so I try to take like short courses ever so often. And so right now I'm in a course with one of my um she's a really good author friend of mine, and so she's a bestseller and that kind of thing. So she kind of has like this blueprint crash course in self-publishing, and so I kind of try to take tips from her as well, and I'm doing her course as well too. It's so interesting that you asked that question because my first experience with a writing coach was terrible, like terrible. It took me a while to recuperate and gather myself after that. And I was like, okay, I have to let my love for writing come like first before this experience that I've had. So I just continue to research. I would go up on like those free courses and stuff, like just look at YouTube videos, talk to my friends in the industry and just kind of try to form my own style of writing. So yeah.
I think it's very commendable that you don't just stay where you are, but rather you try to actively improve upon things, as you mentioned, doing
Yeah.
courses, talking with persons in the industry. So I imagine should you come out with another published work, the quality should be significantly better.
Yes, that is my hope. That is my hope indeed.
You had mentioned that your writing style, it was sort of erratic. How long did it take you to get your book from the idea in your head to having a published copy in your hand?
Um, it took roughly about a year because I had this story written. And I can't remember what I entered it into. I think it was a Commonwealth short story competition, and I didn't make the short list, but I said maybe I could publish it at some point later on, and I kind of left it for a while. And then I went into a workshop, and so that's unfortunately with the writing coach that was a terrible experience. But I still got, I know, but I still gathered some good points out of it. And so I was able during that process to publish it. And after, everything came out with the writing coach and the terrible things that happened, I had to go redo it. So that took me like about let me say a few more months after because I had to change their input in terms of um acknowledging their help and whatnot inside of it because I didn't want anything to do with that person ever again. And so I had that changes had to happen inside of those pages in the book. But the essence of the story stayed. It's just the acknowledgements and the copyright and all that I had to adjust to exclude that person for legal reasons. And so that took a little more time. So I'll say like about a year and something, a year and a few months until I was able to have the hard copy of the book in my hand. So yeah.
Well, you had mentioned that one of the persons you had gotten advice from, they're an author, they do workshops on self-publishing, etc. Your work, is it self-published or did you go the route of a traditional publisher to get your work published?
It is self-published. I did my own cover as well. I researched my tools and stuff in terms of formatting, typesetting the book. I learned in terms of going how to publish on Amazon and draft to digital as well. So I just kind of used the little tools and techniques that I found from my research. And I kind of have a little handiness in graphic design, nothing, professional, but I worked with different apps and stuff, and I just kind of like created my own book cover and put up everything. I looked at the guidelines in terms of how book covers for paperback has to be. And so yeah, I just kind of taught myself a lot of things inside of the process to be able to self-publish.
One of the things I learned about authors, or rather, um, entrepreneurs, as the term is coined among,
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of the learning it's a learning curve for them. It's not just the self-publishing aspect as you described. They do a lot of research in terms of graphic design, layout, all these different skills that they were not acquainted with before. In
Yeah.
terms of marketing, did you have to do research in that particular field as well?
Marketing is such a elusive dragon to me because I do not like marketing at all. And I don't think I'm very good at it because I'm not as consistent as I should be on social media. It's just this ever so often I would get like these really cool ideas of what I can do to promote the book. So I'll do that in that one little stint. And then after I'll be like, okay, that's enough social media for today. And I will not try to, some authors will consistently promote their stuff. I am working on that aspect of it because marketing is such a huge beast to conquer. And it's like, okay, just the thought of having to convince somebody to buy my thing, it's like, oh no. So that is something that I'm working on. I think even my author friend whose course I'm in, that's one of the big things that she's encouraging us to do. And I'm like, okay, fine. It would seem that I have to go fight this dragon. So I have to really get myself together in terms of that.
Mhm. Uh, in terms of the marketing aspect, just to return to the beast as you call it, did you have to employ any kind of creative means or methods to get the word out about your book outside of just standard social media? Did you have to, for example, go and make an appointment with the library to have a book launch there? Anything like that?
Actually, no, I entered the First Time Author Award program that NALIS has, the National Library System has, and I did that was the only kind of thing that I did. But otherwise it was just word of mouth, just telling my friends, hey, I'm writing this thing. Or I would put a post and be like, I wrote this thing, guys. Do you want to go read it? I would just like post different trending my book on different trending sounds and those kind of things. So yeah, it's basically just been like the littlest effort in terms of promotion, which I know is terrible, but the most sales I've gotten is in terms of just telling my friends and they telling their friends and sharing stuff on WhatsApp and people like, okay, I'll buy it and then giving them hard copies. So that is where most of my promotional stuff has come.
And how has the response been from the persons who have bought it? Do they think it's something that they like? Are they satisfied with their purchase? Are you encouraged to do a follow-up book coming out of this?
Actually, yeah, that was one of the things that a lot of people were asking for in terms of like a full-length follow-up book. And I actually started one. So I was like, okay, maybe I should, kind of work on getting that out. So I have the full story in my head to expand. And so I was like, okay, maybe I should really, really, consider this seriously doing that. But most people have said that they would like to see it in a full length novel and that they enjoyed it. They enjoyed it. It was an unusual plot twist for most people, but they liked it anyways.
How would you feel if it is that your book were to be used in a setting, for example, a school, to help persons with their reading and their comprehension skills?
I would be overjoyed. I think that's one of my like a wild dream that I have that one of my books would be used in that type of setting. Because I loved literature and those kind of reading books by V.S. Naipaul, Sam Selvon, I think Green Days by the River as well too. So it's just like seeing Trini authors being used inside of literature, even to just kind of dissect the plot and what do you think the author was saying here, learning different words and all of that is like, okay, if my book could be used in that setting in schools, I would be massively overjoyed.
What formats do your book take at present?
It's in ebook and paperback.
Hmm. So Are you interested in having a book put in, for example, like put into an audio version?
Um, I mean, yeah, I feel like audiobooks take a lot of resources, but if I can do that one day, that would be great.
If persons wanted to get copies of your books, where can they get them?
Right now, it's on Amazon, both in Kindle and paperback. It's on Barnes and Noble. I can't remember the other places that they're on. But through Draft to Digital, it's they publish it to various sites, so like Hoopla, Apple Books, Barnes and Nobles, what was the other book? Platform, sorry, I can't remember. So it's on mainly most of the popular digital platforms. You can find it on there.
Okay, excellent. Hmm. And how has the response been from your family and friends? I know that you would have spoken about persons who you have shared it with, etc., but your father, your mother, your siblings, how do they feel knowing that they have a published author or a writer in the family?
My sister also writes as well too, so it was really nice kind of just sharing that with her and seeing her excitement. My mom was also excited. My mother-in-law was also excited. She made sure that I brought her a copy. They all demanded that they get their own personal copies. So it was nice seeing their reception of it.
Excellent, excellent. Although you did not mention having like an official book launch, do you think that's something that you would be interested in doing in the future?
Yes, that is something I'm actually I want to start putting in place for my next release, which is a book of poetry. So I do want to have an official launch for that one. I've been tooling around with the idea of what it will look like and just kind of doing research in terms of like what is the standard, like what is a template that I can follow. It's because it's a very scary thing. But yes, book launches are things that I want to put into practice to do for my book to just kind of also help with promotion and stuff like that.
Mm. Since you've written your book, have you had, for example, any sort of speaking engagements to talk about the process or to encourage persons?
No, I have not had any invites to speaking engagements for my book. Yeah, no, I haven't had any. None that I can remember anyways. No.
Having gone through the process, what advice would you give to someone who is listening to this program and who may be interested in doing what you did? First off, writing your book and also having your book self-published as opposed to having it traditionally published.
Well, what I would advise is just write. I the publishing process can be a bit tricky. It may seem overwhelming at first, but I think most importantly, if you have a story to tell, tell it. Write as much as you can, get it all out. If you think that you may not be good at like editing or typesetting or book covers, that's okay. There are many different services that you can save up and hire someone to do it for you. There's Readsy, there's Fiverr, there's the Alliance of self-published authors that you can go upon to get reputable people to do that for you. There's even people, there's companies in Trinidad, if you're in Trinidad, that does that for you as well. So there are services that you can employ to help you with the more overwhelming task of that. But first and foremost, get your story out. If you have to write a bit every day, whatever inspires you to get it out, make sure and get it out, and then you could do the refining process. At least if you have a draft, you can work with that to actually move into publishing it. Um, I prefer self-publishing because I think self-publishing, you get a lot of creative freedom in terms of how you want your book to either be promoted, how you want your cover to be, how you want to design the interior of your book. You get a lot of freedom with that. if you want, I would encourage people to do self-publishing. But if you would like to do the traditional route, that's also, an option as well. But don't look at the overwhelmingness of the whole journey. Get your story on paper, get it written out, and then you can work just one step at a time. I think that is what I had to tell myself inside of the process. One step at a time, and eventually you'll reach where you want to go in terms of publishing it. Research, 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 because there's a lot of industry standards and there's a lot of trend that is changing every day inside of the industry. So research, once you know what genre you want to write in, just look at the different trends that are there, how book covers, eye-catching book covers inside of that genre. Because what you don't want is to have a book and then people pass by it because the cover doesn't match, the genre that you would have written it inside of. And so it's just those little things you can do on your entrepreneur journey. Research is a massive part of it, but first and foremost, get your story out. If you have a story that you would like to publish, make sure you write it first. Yeah, don't wait till you feel it's perfect before, okay, now I'm gonna start to write because I have everything figured out in my mind. But start writing and eventually it will flow and you could always edit and tweak and stuff after, but get it out basically.
Okay. I mean, I think it's sensible advice that you've given. A lot of it is research driven, and a lot of it is performance driven to just start. Don't wait for it to be perfect.
Yeah.
So that pretty much brings us to the end of our interview. Thank you very much for your time, Miss Rosita. It was
No
really a
problem.
pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
I really enjoyed your insights, and I think the listeners could also say the same thing. Your approach in terms of being very research oriented, your approach, also to enhancing your skills to deliver a better product, and we can appreciate that if it is that you want to follow in your footsteps and become a self-published author as well.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the feedback and I really appreciate this platform that you have going. I think it's always easy to think that okay, it's the journey is going to lead you in a particular direction, but it's nice to have help along the way. It's nice to have outlets where you can, have your voice as an author heard. And I think you're doing a really wonderful job in terms of providing that safe space for authors. So thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Those are very kind words, ma'am. Thank you for agreeing to be interviewed.
No problem.
Okay.
You've been listening to TLC, Tropical Literature Creators. If you've heard something of interest or something you like, reach out to us. Reach out to our authors. Follow us on social media. We look forward to hearing from you.